SS31 inside our bodies actually prevents the loss of mitochondrial membrane potential. If someone's got high blood glucose, SS31 helps with stabilizing that. It prevents oxidative stress, which is a major contributor to mitochondrial dysfunction. It accelerates ATP recovery and prevents cell death in tissues like the kidneys and muscles. You get the stabilization of that mitochondrial membrane potential, reduction of your reactive oxygen species, so oxidative stress, protection of cardiolipin, enhance recovery from ischemic injuries, and improve mitochondrial energy. Reagan is traveling today, so those of you just joining, sorry, Reagan, you're stuck with me tonight. So hopefully I'll be able to provide some good, enlightened content. We're going to be talking about a really cool peptide tonight, SS31, and the mitochondrial membrane potential, and how SS31 can help stabilize that and just create better and better mitochondrial health. So I'm going to dive in. This is probably going to be a fairly like a faster session tonight than usual. So you guys buckle up. Let's dive in. We're going to jump into SS31 peptide and then the potential there, the mitochondrial membrane potential and how everything goes there. Awesome. Thanks, Bill. Hey, from Alabama. I'm in St. George, Utah. Awesome. And Jane. Hi, Kathy. Thanks for saying hey, everybody. Great to have you guys on here. So we're jumping into mitochondrial health and how SS31. So SS31, a really, really dynamic peptide that's been super helpful in enhancing mitochondrial function. So just a little kind of refresher on what mitochondrial is. So you have your cell. So think of this image here that you're looking at. If you're able to see my screen, there's like a little bean shape and then a bunch of little stuff inside. That is your mitochondria. And just think of, in a bigger scale, would be you have like your cell. And so, inside the cell is the mitochondria. Mitochondria, this is think of like a battery inside the cell, and this thing just provides all sorts, a lot of the energy for the cell to actually function and move. And so you have DNA, there's different intermembrane space, ribosomes, that's essentially the anatomy that you're looking at of the mitochondria, but really simply put, your mitochondria is the powerhouse or the battery factory. It's like a vibration that keeps your cells just moving, humming, and functioning. And then let's look at SS31. So what SS31 kind of has helped with or been shown to be really, really helpful. So if you think of, let's look at this diagram. You have oxidative stress, insulin resistance, and synaptic damage. Those, and you can look at more the scientific term of what oxidative stress is, insulin, and in the center, how that affects your mitochondria. And it's really, really interesting. So you have Alzheimer's. If you have a lot of insulin resistance and amyloid beta plaque aggregation or synaptic damage, that's going to create Alzheimer's issues. If you have oxidative stress and insulin resistance, that's going to create more like your diabetes. So these are two things. Those three things can intersect and create a lot of damage when it starts in the mitochondria not functioning. And so your mitochondrial membrane potential is really, really important to create stabilization in that. And so SS31 inside our bodies actually prevents the loss of mitochondrial membrane potential. So it's critical factor for ATP synthesis. It's particularly effective under stress conditions like ischemia or high glucose environments. And so that SS31, we've been able to utilize that when people have blood sugar regulation issues, or if someone's got high blood glucose, SS31 helps with stabilizing that. And then if you can stabilize that mitochondrial membrane potential, and that's just so you guys know, this little symbol here, that just means mitochondrial membrane potential. It's a big long word otherwise. So that's your potential there. And so when we can stabilize that, it supports efficient electron train transport function. And it's really important. And why it matters is it helps sustain your ATP production under stressful scenarios, or even if if you have ATP production, that's going to ensure you have cellular functionality. And so this is a pretty complex diagram just showing all these different functions of mitochondria and how important and how productive SS31 can be. So right here, it's a reduction in reactive oxygen species, but if you look at this SS31, what it does is it can scavenge these reactive oxygen species. So these species that can cause any sort of oxidative stress or damage, or cause interference. SS31, it kind of goes around trolling them and reduces their generation, their multiplication. It minimizes oxidative damage to mitochondrial components such as cardiolipin and ETC complexes. It protects mitochondrial bioenergetics and aids in the ATP recovery. So, what's really important about that, why that matters, it prevents oxidative stress, which is a major contributor to mitochondrial dysfunction. So if we can utilize SS31, reduces oxidative stress, that's going to help reduce mitochondrial dysfunction. And then the protection of the cardiolipin. So, SS31, how it does this, it binds directly to that cardiolipin in the inner mitochondrial membrane, preserves that structure and function. So it can actually continue to do that. It stabilizes ETC and supercomplexes for improved electron flow and ATP efficiency. And so why that's important, that cardiolipin integrity is essential for mitochondrial function and energy production. It's really, essentially a precursor to metabolite carriers, your mitochondrial biogenesis, protein import, ATP synthase. So all these different components, if you're not protecting cardiolipin, a lot of these different functions don't happen appropriately. And so that's where SS31 binds onto your cardiolipin and helps support that so it can continue to interact and cause these functions to actually happen. So another instance would be in recovery from ischemic injuries. So this is where SS31 can help it mitigates ischemic reperfusion injury by reducing oxidative stress. So that's one of the big ones. SS31, we can know it's going to help with oxidative stress, preventing mitochondrial permeability and transition pore opening. And so it helps. You don't want that pore open for other interferences. It accelerates ATP recovery and prevents cell death in tissues like the kidneys and muscles. So this is back to SS31 and some of those protective agents, just by it having the cardiolipin protection, it's helping just really support and reduce oxidative stress so that your mitochondria can continue to produce what it needs to produce, ATP and energy in the cell. And so really why it's really important, because it can offer some therapeutic potential for conditions involving ischemic injuries like a stroke, things like that, heart attacks, kidney damage, all these different things. SS31 has huge potential to be really, really helpful there. And so it restores your phosphate to oxygen ratios, and that's been reflected in improved oxygen consumption efficiency, boosts your ATP production or your ATP max production in aged or stressed cells, especially after ischemic events. And so, that's really helpful when it comes to, what SS31 can do. It's enhancing energy production in stress or aging cells, supporting better cellular performance. So it's been helpful in all those different functions. So some benefits of SS31, you get the stabilization of that mitochondrial membrane potential, reduction of your reactive oxygen species, so oxidative stress, protection of cardiolipin, enhance recovery from ischemic injuries, and improve mitochondrial energy. And so, you get all those. SS31, awesome, very impactful peptide. Some references for you guys. Here's where a lot of this details came from. So this is a study on mitochondria cardiolipin targeted tetrapeptide, SS31. Some information there. They took excerpts on neuroprotective effects with in vitro and in vivo models in spinal cord injuries. There's also a study here on mice from a hind limb ischemia. And then there's some more information on the peptidesociety.org on SS31. So if you guys want to dive further into SS31, feel free. But man, what an impactful peptide. Just really helps. So, you've heard us talk about 5-amino-1-MQ and MOTC. Those are really impactful on the mitochondria, but this is really deep dive into what makes SS31 just absolute game changers, how it's helpful in that membrane potential, the mitochondria, very oxidative stress. It helps reduce in oxidative stress damage, minimize that damage, protects the cardiolipin, and enhances recovery after ischemic events. So hopefully you guys learned something today. That's all I got for you. Have an amazing evening, and we will see you next week and on the Ageless Future Podcast. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.